Sami Hamdi, he's the editor of the International and Middle East Analyst. He joins me from London. Thank you for joining me on the program. Turkey was one of the first countries to provide aid to Qatar when the blockade started 2.5 years ago now. How has that strengthened ties between the two countries?
I think what has strengthened ties is more than just the aid that Turkey offered. We have to remember that there was talk at the time of the imposition of the blockade that Saudi was actually intending to invade Qatar, and Turkey sent its forces. It established a military base in Qatar, which essentially was one of the main factors that led Saudi and the UAE reportedly to abandon such plans. Since then, Turkey has stood with Qatar in its time of need, and Qatar has also helped Turkey in its time of need. While Turkey provided that diplomatic, that political, that military support during the time that Turkey was facing Trump's sanctions, Qatar also continued to invest heavily in Turkey, continued to establish partnerships with Turkish companies. So I think given that they both stood with each other in their time of need, we can say that their relationship has improved significantly in the last 2.5 years.
So relations are definitely have improved. As you said, you talked about increasing trade between the countries and military ties. So how important is Turkey to Qatar and vice versa?
I think they are fundamentally important, and we have to also remember that this meeting also comes amidst a background. On 19th of December, Malaysia's Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has called for a summit to discuss the Islamic issues, the political issues in the world, and he only invited 4 other countries, which are Pakistan, Indonesia, Qatar, and Turkey, suggesting that the orbit of these Islamic countries has moved away from Saudi Arabia and the UAE more towards these other countries. And I think Qatar, being the only Arab country, is a testament to how deep these ties are that Qatar has developed with non-Arab countries, including Turkey and Malaysia. I think we have to remember that they are fundamental to each other, Turkey and Qatar. Qatar has an extensive lobbying network throughout Western capitals, throughout Europe, throughout the US, and it has used some of these lobbying powers to ease the pressure on Erdogan that is being exerted by the European Union and being exerted by the United States. Likewise, Turkey itself, by standing with Qatar during a significant number of foreign policy issues, whether that's Sisi's coup in Egypt, whether that's Saudi Arabia and Mohammed bin Salman's reforms, I think that they both complement each other very well, and they both see eye to eye, both ideologically and eye to eye on nearly all of the foreign policy issues that currently plague the Middle East.
Do you think we're starting to see a thaw in the blockade? It's been 2.5 years now since that began.
I think we are, but not for the reasons that are being touted by many analysts that Saudi Arabia and the UAE failed. I think we have to remember what happened in 2014 or 2015 and these years, why Saudi Arabia and the UAE were particularly bothered. We have to remember that in free democratic elections, the allies of Saudi and the UAE lost and the allies of Qatar were winning. We had Nahda winning in Tunisia, we had the Brotherhood leading in Libya, the Mohammed Morsi, may Allah rest his soul, won in Egypt. UAE and Saudi were essentially terrified that the Arab Spring was spreading. Qatar was an ally of these democratic forces, and the Arab Spring would come to Saudi and the UAE. They believed that Qatar would be the primary power with such influence stretching from Tunis all the way to Doha. Their primary aim was to reduce this influence. If we look at Qatar's influence map today, it is not like it was in 2014. Qatar's allies are no longer the most powerful party in Tunisia or Egypt or any of these other countries that really hurt Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So whilst their policies failed in crushing Qatar, their policies succeeded in reducing that influence. And this is why I think today we see Saudi and UAE, even though they're upset that they didn't crush Qatar, they're at least saying, look, we didn't entirely fail. We managed to diminish some of their influence, and therefore we'll do bit by bit without saying we were wrong. We'll try to reduce some of these ties. Now the question is, will Qatar make Saudi and the UAE bend over backwards to find that reconciliation? In other words, is Qatar independent enough that it doesn't need them? Or will we see that Qatar says, bygones be bygones, look, at the end of the day, let's just clear this mess up in a subtle way?
We're going to leave it there for now. Sami Hamdi joining us from London. Thank you.